recording, but it's fine because we'll just start. So, same thing. Okay, ready?
Okay.
Hi, I'm Ryoko.
And my name's Jaden, and the title of our podcast is The Roommates, obviously because we're roommates. Who would have guessed?
So, on this podcast, we're going to be talking about how nature has a direct impact on a person's experiences and perspective. We're both liberal studies majors, and these are the concepts we're learning in our LS class, so we're just going to talk about them some more in this podcast.
So Maryville, to give you some background on liberal studies, first of all, Maryville University defines liberal studies as a wide range of subject areas, including literature, humanities, history, philosophy, and science. Studying all of these subjects gives a person a broader education and allows them to become creative thinkers. So hopefully you gain some of that insight from this podcast.
And in our liberal studies class right now, more specifically, we are learning about the social sciences and the natural world. An article written in 2021 by Daniel Liberto titled Social Sciences explains social sciences are a group of academic disciplines dedicated to examining society. Some of these sciences included when studying are history, psychology, economics, and much more.
So although there's obviously a lot of disciplines in social sciences we could talk about, today we're only going to focus on geography and psychology because both of these disciplines can be seen in the 1972 novel Bless Me Ultima, which we just finished reading in class.
So a quick summary of Bless Me Ultima is it follows Antonio and Ultima. Antonio is the main character though, and it is kind of his coming of age story. He goes through a lot of challenges when it comes to what he thought he knew when it came to religion, family, and just the world outside of his hometown. Ultima brings in this new perspective of nature, a new spiritual side opposing to like the church religious that Antonio is used to. This novel also connects geography and psychology to the natural world. It is all about nature. Most of the time they are outside during the novel, and it gives a lot of insight to how nature can influence a person's mindset, as by the end of the book, Antonio is completely different in the way he views nature and all the life that it gives. So first, we'll begin talking about geography.
So geography, like we said, is a social science, and there's actually two different kinds of geography. There's physical geography and human geography. However, since we're discussing the natural world, we've found it to be more fitting to talk about physical geography. Physical geography is the study of natural processes and the spatial patterns they exhibit. So it's found a lot throughout the novel Bless Me Ultima, and it can be just there's two concepts that we decided to focus on that come from physical geography, and the two we're deciding to focus on are landscape and animals. So landscape can be found on page 10 of Bless Me Ultima when it reads, "She pointed at the river northwest past the railroad tracks to the dark hills. The river came through those hills and there were old Indian grounds there, holy burial grounds," Jason told me. So this quote obviously is explaining a landscape. It's describing the river, the railroad, the hills, even the old Indian grounds. And we found it to be really fitting when it ties into the natural world and social sciences, because not only are they talking about the Llano and explaining the landscape, but it also sort of ties into history when it explains the old Indian grounds. And it really had this spiritual side when he talks about the old Indian grounds really connects to how his experiences and, I guess, view of the world changed when he started learning more about the spiritual side.
Yeah, and so along with the spiritual side in this novel, animals are both physical and symbolic throughout the novel. So on page 50, it says, "Then the owl cried, it sang to 1,000,000 stars that dotted the dark blue sky, the virgin's gown. All that was watched over, all was cared for, I slept." So this is really important for not only the physical geography, as we know that at the Llano there's a lot of different animals, But it also connects Antonio to like a more psychological side. Sorry, as soon, like, he had a really rough day, but as soon as he heard the owl cry and like was brought back to the natural world and his roots, he felt he was watched over by the animals and by this place he lives in. He was cared for and he slept. The owl throughout the book also represents Ultima, which is why there's this psychological perspective to it when it comes to Antonio, as he feels safe with her and with all the nature that she presents to him. Psychology, according to the American Psychological Association, is the scientific study of the mind and behavior.
So, yeah, now that we talked about geography, like Ryoko said, we're going to talk about psychology. So, again, we're going to focus on two specific concepts of psychology, just like we did with geography. So the two that we decided are most prominent in the novel are well-being and awe. So an example of well-being can be found on page 31 when it reads, "I wanted not to think any more of what I had seen last night. I threw fresh alfalfa into the rabbit's pen and changed their water. I opened the door and the cow bounded out, hungry for fresh grass." So we know that this connects to well-being because Antonio, like he said, had a rough night the previous night, and he wanted to forget about everything he saw, which would help his well-being, which well-being, as we know, is how you're doing physically, mentally. We all know what well-being is. So to better his well-being, he went into his daily routine. Something me and Ryoko noticed is that when we feel that our well-being is not up to par, we often just go into our daily routine, and that's exactly what we did. However, we found this quote really prominent when connecting it to nature, because not only is he doing his routine, but he's also surrounding himself with nature. So to better his well-being, he's in routine, but he's also outside. He's around the fresh grass, he's feeding the animals, and it really did make him feel better in the end.
Yeah, we felt it was really important that he was in nature, even if it was more of a subtlety of the quote. Like, not only was it the routine, but it was also in nature. And we can tell that Antonio feels better when he's in nature off of a quote we found from page 1 of Bless Me Ultima. So right at the beginning of the story. And it says, "My bare feet felt the throbbing earth and my body trembled with excitement. Time stood still and it shared with me all that had been and all that was to come." We found that this was a great description of the awe that Antonio feels when he's in nature. This also happened right after Ultima is introduced to the story as living with him in the Llano. So it was easy to connect to nature and awe. Awe can be kind of hard to describe at times, but it's just this sensation that like envelops you when you're in nature. You feel, it doesn't have to be happy, but you just feel free and like at a different level than you were before. And when the quote says, "Time stood still and it shared with me all that had been and all that was to come," it just really felt like that was an awe moment, not only reading it, but imagining being Antonio and experiencing it, and just feeling the earth beneath you and knowing how much history was there. That's how we defined it as awe. So with that, we have covered our physical geography and our psychology concepts for this novel. I felt like for all the quotes, they could kind of tie into each other at times, just as a lot of the natural world does. And we hope that through these connections we found, maybe you can find other connections in the novel or just any reading that you read.
And you can connect these novels or anything that you're reading to any social science. Like we said, there's a lot of them. Today we really only focused on geography and psychology, like Ryoko was said before. So look into history, look into the other aspects of social sciences, because they really are prominent and they often do connect to the natural world in books and honestly throughout life. So we hope you learned something, and we hope maybe you'll read Bless Me Ultima. It's a really good book. And thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope you have a good day.